The fallout from McLaren's strategic error in Qatar had barely settled when another decision landed heavily on Oscar Piastri's side of the garage ahead of the title decider in Abu Dhabi. Piastri is forced to sit out FP1 due to the mandatory rookie rule, with Pato O'Ward taking over his car. The regulation itself is clear, but the timing could not be more damaging for a driver who remains mathematically in the title fight and needs every minute of track time to prepare for a circuit as sensitive as Yas Marina. Lando Norris, meanwhile, completes the full session without interruption. That setback is accompanied by confirmation that McLaren will hold detailed conversations about potential team orders. Andrea Stella has made it clear the team will assess scenarios where Piastri may be asked to support Norris if the championship situation demands it. On paper, Piastri is still in contention, but decisions like these inevitably spark debate about where the internal priority truly lies. Judged in isolation, these incidents could be dismissed as unfortunate timing. But placed within the context of the season, from team orders in Hungary and Monza, to questionable setup calls in Mexico, and finally the Qatar strategy that shifted the entire momentum of the title race, a recurring pattern becomes difficult to ignore. Whenever McLaren face a critical decision, it is Piastri who appears to be placed at the disadvantage, which leaves an unavoidable question. How long can Piastri continue in a structure that does not give him equal footing? If you want to follow the full breakdown of this story, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. From Abu Dhabi's perspective, everything feeds back into the weekend's core theme. How different would Piastri's position be today if a handful of internal decisions across 2025 had tilted the other way? What defines this narrative is not a single controversy, but a chain of accumulative choices that collectively altered the competitive balance inside McLaren. The Qatar episode is the most visible because of its direct impact on the title fight. Piastri controlled the early phase of the race after converting pole and sprint victory into track position, yet the timing of the safety car exposed McLaren's operational weakness. The team failed to react decisively, allowing Max Verstappen to box at precisely the right moment, switch to fresh tyres without losing position, and seize control of a race he had no business inheriting. Piastri dropped behind, finished second, and afterwards could only offer a short response. Pretty gut-wrenching, speechless. Andrea Stella admitted the team had committed a big mistake and that the review process would be thorough, but the damage had already been done. Verstappen was back within range. Norris extended his lead relative to Piastri, and the Australian lost the pivotal weekend that had been shaping up as the turning point of his championship challenge. Then comes Abu Dhabi FP1. Stella and Zak Brown are right in stating that the rookie rule is mandatory. Every team must hand over 2 FP1 sessions per car to a rookie across the season. Piastri had only surrendered 1 at Monza, so Abu Dhabi became unavoidable. But the rule does not prevent teams from choosing which weekend to allocate the session, and selecting the finale, when a driver is still mathematically in contention, is a decision that inevitably invites scrutiny. It leaves Piastri with less data on a track where tyre preparation, surface evolution, and temperature drops from day to night are crucial. O'Ward, who has already stepped into Norris's car in Mexico, is competent and cooperative, but his presence still modifies the balance of information inside the garage at the moment of peak pressure. Stella's reassurance that we want to be fair to our drivers sits awkwardly alongside the consequence of that choice. When Norris begins the weekend fully up to speed and Piastri loses 60 minutes of reference points, competitive symmetry is plainly affected. This is why so many observers and fans frame Abu Dhabi not as an isolated procedural matter, but as part of a broader trend. To understand that trend, you need to look back. Hungary was the first clearly contentious moment of the year. McLaren opted for split strategies. Norris placed on a 1-stop, Piastri instructed into a 2-stop. The public framing was driver choice, yet the outcome aligned precisely with what the team needed if they were leaning towards Norris. Piastri, who had shown strong pace, was left vulnerable in the final stint. Norris won by 0.6. Piastri finished second. The championship swing was small, but its early season significance was large. Fans immediately picked up on it, sensing the seeds of an imbalance. Monza intensified that perception. Norris suffered a slow pit stop, almost 6 seconds lost, and Piastri jumped ahead into what should have been a legitimate track position gain. But within minutes, McLaren instructed Piastri to return the place. Piastri complied, though his radio message said everything. Slow stops are part of racing. The team's argument was based on their internal procedure of offset correction, but the effect was clear. Norris rescued points, and Piastri's opportunity evaporated. It triggered boos in the stands and long online debate. Piastri later stated he didn't deserve higher than P3, yet the sense of being disadvantaged lingered. Singapore offered a different form of setback. Norris clipped Piastri at the start, compromising both races. Any internal repercussions were short-lived. A supposed garage release priority for Piastri was quietly reversed by the next weekend. Again, the message was not explicit favoritism, but a pattern of outcomes that repeatedly placed Piastri behind when circumstances went against the team. Mexico deepened the frustration. Piastri struggled throughout qualifying, describing the car as well off and unable to find pace, while Norris took pole comfortably. Rumours circulated about unequal setups, a claim McLaren firmly denied, but regardless of intention, the effect was the same. Piastri's momentum dipped again while Norris's campaign stabilised. Through all this, McLaren insist their philosophy is built on fairness and integrity. Stella reiterated before Abu Dhabi, if any of the drivers is in condition to pursue the quest to win the title, we will respect this. Zak Brown has repeated that he would rather lose the championship to Verstappen than favour one driver. But both statements are now met with scepticism, not because they are insincere, but because the season's operational footprint contradicts the aspirational tone of those messages. The next layer comes from external voices. Jacques Villeneuve argued that Piastri is unlikely to help Norris while still mathematically alive, saying, "On the last lap, both Max and Norris could blow an engine." Senator Matt Canavan in Australia even brought the perceived bias to Parliament, asking whether McLaren cost Piastri the World Championship. Red Bull were forced to issue a statement regretting the abuse directed at Kimi Antonelli after allegations he moved aside for Norris in Qatar. These reactions show how charged the environment has become. Even if McLaren believe they are operating neutrally, the optics of their decisions have fueled a narrative that gains traction each time the team falter. Stella's explanation, referencing 2007 and 2010, years when the third-place driver entering the final race won the title, was meant to reinforce the idea that Piastri remains fully backed. But when combined with the consistent direction of marginal decisions, it comes across as more theoretical than practical. The team say that if both drivers are in a position to win the title, there will be no call which excludes the other driver. Yet the very need to emphasize this ahead of the final round underlines how sensitive that balance has become. The rookie FP1 decision illustrates the precise tension: technically correct, strategically questionable, and optically damaging. It reinforces the impression that McLaren, intentionally or not, continue to place Piastri in situations that reduce his competitive margins. This context also shapes the discussion about future opportunities. Piastri has delivered 9 wins this season, often under high pressure, and consistently matched or outperformed Norris outright. His development curve, aided but not defined by the strength of the McLaren package, positions him as one of the clearest long-term threats to Verstappen. Yet his title campaign has been curtailed not by a lack of pace, but by the cumulative impact of decisions that reframe the intra-team dynamic in critical moments. Public frustration stems not from conspiracy theories, but from a season's worth of evidence in which Piastri's path appears structurally less supported. His professionalism has kept the situation under control. He has repeatedly said he controls my own destiny, but the pressure is clearly visible. Abu Dhabi now becomes more than a title decider. It is a referendum on how McLaren managed 2 elite drivers when both are capable of delivering championships. The team's long-term plan, talent pipeline, and internal decision-making structure will face scrutiny no matter who wins. And for Piastri, the question is not whether he has the talent to become world champion. That is already answered. The deeper question, one that grows louder with every compromised weekend, is whether McLaren can ever be the environment that supports his ambitions without internal friction. So the real issue going into this final race is simple. If Abu Dhabi follows the same pattern as the rest of the season, how long until Piastri decides he deserves a team willing to back him without compromise?